All right. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And in this moment of silence, I think we all need to reflect on our past county attorney, Mr. Shackelford. He was with us for 40 years in Madison, and his comment was that it was his duty to protect Madison County. He passed last week. He did the citizens of Madison a lot of hard work for a very reasonable price, and it's something to keep in mind. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Mr. Weekly, you have anything you need to add to the agenda?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody?
No, sir.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, as always, general public comment. General public comment. We're going to do public hearing on, looks like logging here very shortly. General public comment. All right. We'll do this multiple times. We do have a consent agenda. We have minutes from 5/10/22. We have the school board supplemental appropriation, which is grant from DOH for $25K. We have another supplemental appropriation for the completion of the admin project for $60K. Anybody have questions, comments, thoughts, motion? What do y'all want to do?
Mr. Chairman, one point of privilege, and I apologize, Supervisor Yao, for not connecting earlier on this. I believe you caught something in the minutes for the last set of minutes that you're looking to approve tonight. What was on the tape was to approve as presented. Mr. Gregg, for clarity, there was an item that was amended for the agenda. So could they approve the minutes reflecting the change of the agenda being amended versus presented?
The statement, so I certainly have no objection to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that and the other thing was the presentation by Firefly was by Mr. Wood.
Gary Wood, yes.
But that's minor, but I just thought. So,
Good catch.
so Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No special appearances this evening. Let's start with the forestry equipment tax exemption public hearing. Mr. Weekly, Mr. Gregg.
Let me pull that up here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, at the last meeting, there was a receipt of letter by the Virginia Association of Loggers, which triggered a discussion. The General Assembly had passed given the local option to counties to consider exempting forestry equipment. This is equipment that's involved in the forestry harvesting portion. The Loggers Association brought that to our attention. The board directed Mr. Gregg and I to advertise for a public hearing, which is being considered tonight. Just a recap of some of the information, we gave you the rough estimate of fiscal impact. So it represents about $15,000 of revenue that we are currently showing. Mr. Daniel, who I think, he's here tonight, did some research for us as far as our neighboring counties. And as you can see in the board report, after reviewing that, the counties of Orange, Greene, and Rappahannock do not tax forestry equipment, while the counties of Page and Culpeper do. There is a draft ordinance included in your packet, and I believe that ordinance number should be number 2 for the year, but that is there for you to consider should you want to act on this item tonight. With that said, I don't know if Mr. Gregg has anything he wishes to add.
Very briefly, the Commonwealth of Virginia enabled localities to exempt equipment used in silviculturing and harvesting forest products. What we are doing, or what is proposed, is in line with what many of our neighbors and the overall trend across the state.
And Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, our commissioner certainly administers the program. Whether he has any questions or thoughts for the board tonight as well.
No questions or thoughts there, Commissioner? All right. Does the board have any comments before we open it up to the public?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have some comments, and they relate to the comments that I made initially at the last meeting where this was actually presented. I've had a chance to do some research and speak with some folks in the logging industry, and I sympathize with their plight. Just like the rest of us, they're fighting all these increased fuel costs. They're a basic industry to this county. They work hard in a very dangerous industry, and I think we need to support them. I'm going to go to the flip side, and this addressed my earlier argument. We are giving up some tax revenue, and my philosophy on this as a supply side free market person is that I think this is actually going to be an investment in our logging community. And if we can help these folks survive and flourish, they're going to expand eventually. They're going to buy more road vehicles, more equipment. And I think that in 5 to 10 years, we will actually see a positive return with regard to tax revenue if we adopt this policy. So as of now, I'm in favor of this policy of the exemption.
Anybody else have any comments?
Well, I guess I'll add my comments right now, and I appreciate Mr. Jewett's perspective on this. And as I said before, our comprehensive plan supports this. Our first goal in the whole comprehensive plan talks about agriculture and forestry being our primary industries in the county of Madison. So I too am in support of it. And at this point,
Anybody else? All right, let's open it up to the public. Come to the podium, identify yourself, and tell us what you think.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the Board of Supervisors, I'm Ron Jenkins. I'm from Goochland County. I serve as Executive Director of the Virginia Loggers Association and proudly represent Madison County loggers who are here tonight. Can I ask you all to stand so we can at least get an idea of the amount? Thank you. Thank you very much. I would just add to Mr. Jewett's comments, and I appreciate that he reached out to me, and I hope that our effort to help him understand when the distance that he was hoping for. I know that you have spoke to others, and I'm deeply grateful for you doing that, and others as well. I know some other folks did that. I have brought with another handout, and I hope they'll share it with you. I'll just keep my comments brief, trying to think that I might be able to determine what you're thinking now. It seems very positive, and I'd like to say thank you for that. I'd like to echo a comment that Mr. Jewett made. And sometimes when you think as a free enterprise person, and we all do, because these folks know business real well, that it is an investment. It is a reduction from this source for taxes. But when they can reinvest and keep their business going and pass it on to new generations. And I know I met Andy Dean this week. I went to a logging site with him, and he's third generation. And I believe that Mr. Gentry, a third generation, and there's probably others that may be beyond that. This whole entire industry depends upon families just like them. There are no large corporations that can handle this type of work. And you're exactly right. It's still considered one of the most dangerous jobs by OSHA. So I don't know what comparison they make, U.S. or national or in the world, but it is a very dangerous job, even with mechanized logging. But I know for a fact that there are folks here in this area who have lost their lives just recently within the last couple of years. So my sympathy and empathy and love for all of you go out, because I know a family's right here that's had a loss. I know the Sisk family had a loss. So it is extremely dangerous. Yet they go out every day, they work hard, they put their lives on it, they love what they do, or they wouldn't try to pass it on. So we ought to just say, thank God for them. They're here, and hopefully we'll have fiber and wood for the future. And I'm going to say thank you, and I hope that you'll vote in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Other public comment?
Good evening. I'm Teresa Woodward with Leroy Woodward and Son Logging Incorporated, and I would like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to have the forestry tax considered for exemption. After the last meeting, I reached out to other counties as well, and I was able to see how they had approved the tax exemption, to see how it had impacted their budget and how they were able to achieve this revenue. And the counties that I spoke to haven't had any issues achieving this revenue. The counties were different sizes, population. Some were smaller, some were larger. There was one county that was pretty close to our population. They were around 12,000 some. We're around 13,000 some. And they had a loss of $60,000. And they were able to achieve this loss without placing any burden on any taxpayers. So I felt good about that, because, you know, I wanted to try to think of ways too that we weren't putting a burden on other taxpayers. And so some of the ways, when I was doing a little research and trying to think through the process, was the sales tax. The revenue is increased with the cost of goods and inflation. And then we have online ordering now, and there was a tremendous amount of that during COVID, which sales tax was received from that. So if you do online ordering within the county and you don't go outside to the box, you know, the big box stores to get your merchandise, and you're doing it within the county, then you're actually getting a percentage of that tax back in the county. So that has really helped. Also, the food trucks, the food and beverage tax that we see there. You know, we don't have a lot of brick and mortar restaurants in our county, but the food trucks have brought in additional revenue. The festivals, and then also the Airbnb, the transit occupancy tax. That has been a huge, you know, with the COVID, a lot of people are doing that more than doing the bigger vacations. They like having the, you know, the B&B so they can have them more secluded. Also, we know it's, you know, going to be coming, the revalue of vehicles due to COVID, the NADA, all used vehicles are going up with this chip shortage we had, so therefore there'll be more revenue on that aspect. And then I know y'all mentioned the cigarette tax at the last meeting, and I kept it at the bottom of my list, but I did reach out to some other counties, and they said that a lot of them are charging 15 to 25 cents on the cigarette tax, but it's my understanding Madison is charging 40 cents. So that's producing a lot of extra income and revenue there. And so it seems there are multiple ways to achieve this revenue without placing a huge burden on other taxpayers within the county. And our goal is not to place the burden on other taxpayers, but to keep these small businesses in our county and to continue to keep jobs and economic growth within our community. I am hopeful as you review this exemption, you see there are other ways to achieve this revenue. By making this investment, and that word's been said a lot tonight, it is truly an investment. For small businesses in forestry, it outweighs the revenue loss to keep these businesses in our county. Also, it seems Madison County is very supportive of agriculture, which is farmers and loggers, by having them in the comprehensive plan, which was recognized at the last meeting, and I think Mr. Yao just spoke of that as well. So I'd like to thank you again for your time and consideration, and thank you all, you know, for just putting this on the table to consider it. But I think, you know, the small businesses are really looking for any way they can save right now to keep their head above the water, because we are being faced with very difficult, challenging times. And I think all of us in our personal lives as well. So thank you again and have a great evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment. Other public comment. All right. Call the public hearing on the exemption for forestry equipment closed. What would everybody like to do here? We do have an ordinance in front of us. And it's ordinance is it
Number
number
two.
two.
It should be number 2. And just for further clarity, and thanks, Mr. Gregg, for putting this together. In looking at the our ordinances or our codification, which is the process you're considering tonight, Article 11 is where your taxation of certain tangible personal property currently exists. Section 24-280 was where the reservation portion started. So that's where Sean thought it was adequate. So if approved here tonight, that's where it would go
So
in your,
just number 2 is a 2 dash.
just
well,
-2 is what I believe you said. 2022, excuse me, 20,
That sounds.
2022
I
-2.
agree. I agree.
A lot of twos.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance. You need something else?
No, please go ahead.
Ordinance 2022-2.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Yeah. Mr. Daniels?
It is effective, so thank you for raising awareness of that. So Sean has that listed, so it will be effective upon enactment. So we'll cover this current year that we're in, starting immediately, excuse me.
All right. Other questions? All right. Hearing no more discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There you go. Thank y'all.
There's a lot of twos in there.
Daddy was a customer when I was a kindergarten from the law.
I think I've got every one of their cell phone numbers on my phone.
Yeah.
You know. Well, let Sydney leave. All right. Now, the next public hearing is on the Hoover Ridge lease agreement. We have a proposal in front of us, a lease in front of us. I understand that we have to go to public hearing to release private land, Mr. Gregg.
That is correct, and this is in compliance with Virginia code and arguably in an abundance of exercising an abundance of caution. I cannot imagine it would ever be challenged. Nevertheless, we have advertised it for public hearing tonight.
Very good.
And the sort of the executive summary is the property would be an existing lease would be renewed with the tenant, whom I understand has been leasing this property for over 10 years. And the county, generally speaking, has been very happy with the work he's done and meeting his responsibilities in terms of maintaining the nutritional values and otherwise, doing a good job of managing the property.
Mr. Weekly, anything to add?
He did a great job. So again, this is renewing. This would be renewing a lease.
Renewing and updating.
And renewing and updating, because the updating portion is the acreage has shrunk over the years. This is the former Clore property, known now as Hoover Ridge. So actually the acreage has shrunk. There is an exhibit in here that represents that acreage. I think it's roughly just under 32 acres. If you're familiar with the cornfields, or well, depends on what's planted, but you're going along Fairground Road. If you're headed from 29 to Orange Road, the property is located on the left. That's pretty much the remaining area that does not have recreational activities or facilities located. So we just cleaned it up, referred to it as Area 1 and 2, but I believe it's a combined acreage of 31.8 acres. So that exhibit is included with the lease.
Comments from the board?
How long is the lease for?
It would be a 5-year period. Let me go back to the lease. Can you bring that up, please, Alan, the actual lease language? This would basically make it retroactive from January 1, 2022, and it would run through December 31, 2027. So we kept the same language to prior leases, and it looks like we started this back in like April of 2003. So there is notification if either party wanted to terminate. There's language in there for that, but it is a 5-year lease, which has been standard practice over the years.
I don't recall. What's the language in there for renewal after this 5-year term?
He would have the right to, the tenant would have the right to apply to renew the lease.
So
And
we
we
go
have a
through the
public hearing
same
after that.
process?
That's correct.
Same process, yes, sir.
Job security.
Good. All right. All right. We have opened the public hearing for the lease of the Hoover Ridge cropland. Is there any public comment on this? Hunter, you didn't bring anybody? The loggers brought everybody. I mean, nobody but you. Well, we'll take you. Any public comment? Are they jumping off on the online? Farmers are known for getting online. No, none on there either. That's a real disappointment. All right, the public hearing is closed on the Hoover Ridge farmland lease. What would y'all like to do here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we direct staff to execute the Hoover Ridge lease agreement with Mr. Hunter Weaver.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Now, can you afford to plant it?
Yeah, fertilizer costs there. Through the roof.
Good. All right. No other public hearings this evening. We do have old business. Mr. Gregg, tell us about Thrift Road.
Next Tuesday, I will be posting the notice at the circuit court about our intentions with regard to the abandonment of these. I'm sorry, under Thrift Road. I'm sorry. I was talking about the road abandonment. Thrift Road, I have submitted the title information to the Rappahannock Community Services Board. I have not heard back from them. I would anticipate that we will have made significant progress probably by next Wednesday or Thursday. What I'm anticipating is going to happen is that the 3 neighboring properties will all execute a quitclaim deed of sorts so that everybody has the right to use this little triangle. For those of you who don't fully understand what I'm talking about, the title work showed a triangle of property. Oh, it's the size of probably where y'all are seated in this front row. I think that whenever Thrift Road was established, everybody just assumed it was a public road and nobody really cared about it. There have been multiple deeds on the property, none of which seem to have any issue with it, and everyone has agreed that they would continue to use this. If push absolutely came to shove, we would probably have to condemn property against an unknown owner. I'm certainly hoping we do not have to do that. I'm hopeful that the title company will accept the additional title information that I have provided to them, and we can proceed to closing on the sale.
Very good. Since Mr. Gregg started with it, tell us about the road real quick, Mr. Gregg,
The road at,
that you're going to post tomorrow,
no, on Monday.
next Monday. Excuse
Yeah.
me, please.
That is the, and I'm trying to remember the,
River Road.
It's Chlor
Chlor
Road.
that's Chlor Road. Where we stand with that, there have been no objections from any of the neighbors. The legal method of doing this, and it's very convoluted, but we post a notice at the courthouse at least 3 days before the next term of court. Our next term of court begins July, either the 1st or the 5th, I'm not sure which. So by posting it, on June 1st or June 2nd, we have plenty of time. We will meet that requirement. After that point, I will file a petition with the court for the purpose of abandoning it. I do not anticipate we will need a hearing of any sort in court. It should be just a matter of the judge signing off on it.
Any questions on either of these two items? All right, moving right along. New business, the sales of Kriglersville property. Never thought we'd say this.
Look at that grin.
It is true. It is true. Mr. Weekly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So I provided you a board report. This is for the disposition of county surplus property. We've done that with thrift. So our next one in inventory we've been working on is Kriglersville Elementary School. So a little bit of background. This property was transferred from the school to the county back in 2005. As you may recall, there was a construction project that was approved when they expanded Waverly Yao. It consolidated the school population from Kriglersville. They relocated. Schools no longer use the property. After 2 years, you lose the grandfathering of a school. But that's how we became the owners of the property. The county has held several public hearings. I just used several. I did not go back and count, but I know at least a couple when I was on the board for consideration of the use of the building, but also the property. And the county has listed the property for sale on numerous occasions, and it currently has the sign up still today. Recently, the county had several interested parties in the site. However, only one party had been involved in negotiations and actually submitted a proposal. Others were just more of I hate to use the word tire kicker, but we did show the property, but only one proposal was provided. So the county desires to consider the disposal of surplus property. Like I said, you've been involved in negotiations to sell the property. The tax map parcel in reference is 21-61. The property represents a total of 5.83 acres, valued at $75,000. There are 3 buildings located on the grounds. One building is currently leased to the Madison County Historical Society, who maintain and operate what is known as the Mountain Museum. The county wishes to preserve and maintain ownership of this portion of the property. The main school building and the former voting precinct, that's the building that's closest located to the church. Those 2 buildings and remaining acreage will convey with the sale of the property. The total value of the buildings equals $70,900. This is according to GIS. Therefore, the total assessed value of the property is $145,900. You have a contract to consider, as well as a resolution in your board packet, which was published to the public on Friday. My recommendation is consider disposing of the Kriglersville Elementary School property and approve the contract of purchase provided by Mr. Felix Shapiro, also known as Kriglersville Elementary School, LLC. Resolution number 2022-7 has been provided to the board for potential action. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to
Any questions
entertain
from
them.
Jonathan or Sean on this transaction?
One other point, sir, county staff had met with Mr. Shapiro and Mr. Lacey, the president of the Historical Society, just to confirm the boundaries that we would look to preserve. We will need to get that surveyed so we have the proper delineation, if you will, of that property, which both parties would need to have those updated things filed in the courthouse. So that's something that if you approve this tonight, I can administratively handle that if you so choose. But I think that's kind of one of the last remaining steps if you look to approve this resolution tonight. And the resolution would be authorizing the chairman to execute the contract documents. Mr. Gregg, did I miss anything, sir?
No, sir.
Felix, what do you have to say?
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak with y'all and the opportunity to join Madison County's business community. I'm to the moon about it. As Mr. Weekly mentioned, I went out and spoke with Mr. Lacey about the delineation between the Mountain Museum and the property. I will say I am an enthusiastic neighbor and a supportive neighbor. So really anything that he wants to do, I will not only put up with, but enthusiastically support in any way I can. And you know, that goes for a cup of sugar if anybody in the broader neighborhood needs one. I have to be a good neighbor in every sense of the word. And so thanks for having me out, and thanks for making Madison County a wonderful place to live, work, and play.
Well, Max is a real hard person to get along with. No, welcome to the community. Look forward to having you and what you're going to do down there with a fine school. What are you? Go ahead. You want to say a couple words on what you're doing, Felix?
Sure thing. So I think it has all the trappings of an incredible boutique hotel. So with that back space, I think it would make a prime wedding venue. It's an astounding thing. Most of the outdoor spaces, if it rains, they tell you to get a tent.
Enthusiastic.
So having the ability to give people some cover out of the rain, access to indoor plumbing at a wedding is going to be, I think, an incredible selling point. But we want to bring value to the community, so we are open to suggestion, requests as to how we can make the space an asset not just for visitors but for folks in the area. I think we hope to have some light retail on the sort of in that outbuilding adjacent to the road, which I think would allow both an opportunity to sell goods from Madison County, and I'm very open in that regard, but also to bring access to goods that might be hard to find out that way. So I'm welcome suggestion on what folks would like to buy and sell. And certainly what types of food would give interest to folks. As was previously mentioned, I'm excited to hopefully bring some new dining options to the area. So thanks for letting me join.
Home cooking, that's what we need.
All right. All right. What would y'all like to do? Comments, thoughts? How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the museum and what Mr. Shapiro's got in mind would complement each other very well. I mean, they go hand in glove. And also, if I'm not mistaken, this property goes across the road and touches the river. Okay.
Correct, sir.
Now, we've got some of the prime fishing right here in Madison County, up all the way from there up to our Graveses, except that there's very little access to the river. In a lot of places, it's the property is owned privately, so you can't get to the river. So I would encourage you to, that way you've got a parking area right there. You go across the road and stick your line in the river. I think that's a big selling point. I'm excited to see some more access to the river for fishing.
You don't want a swinging bridge, do you?
Yeah.
I've heard it would require some conversation.
Yeah, it would. They're a fun bunch too.
There's a group. Have you met the owners of the Possum Store yet?
I have not, although
You should do that soon. Yeah.
high-speed internet to the area, which is pretty exciting.
They're enthusiastic too. You should talk to them. No, it's great to have you. And it's exciting to be able to convey this to go into the private sector, not just for the revenue, but being part of the community. You will do what you say, and that's kind of where it is. In the Historical Society, it is. It's just, they're a great group, and with Madison's history, it's just something truly something to capitalize on. That is a marketable trait that we all see, but it's good for everybody. So it's exciting. Very good.
And I've never seen anybody as happy in my life.
You really have it.
It makes us question your judgment. We do have
No.
a resolution in front of us, 2022-7, and need to authorize us to sign for the sale of this property.
And that is in the resolution,
Yes, sir.
sir. It gives you the exclusive rights to execute the documents.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution 2022-7.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Welcome, Felix.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, sir.
Can we put a sold sign across the?
I'd be happy to
up
do
there.
that. Yeah, be happy. I don't know if my label maker will make that font, but we'll make that happen.
Save that sign. We may need it later. We do need to reappoint Paul Oots to the IDA. I understand at this point, Mr. Oots, we haven't been able to communicate with.
We have not. Alan has actually reached out at least on a couple occasions. So my recommendation would be if we haven't been able to establish contact or they contact us in the next week or two, is just go out for advertisement. Or if the board knows a friend, wants to phone a friend, we're happy to do either. But that isn't a term that expired.
Why don't we do it? What about if we go ahead and we give them another week to contact Mr. Oots. If we don't hear from him within a week, we go ahead and advertise. Does that sound reasonable? And the question did come up today. Mr. Oots is still alive. Maybe.
Still delivering the mail.
Yeah, he's about.
There you go. So there's confirmation. Hopefully we can get in touch with Mr. Oots and he'll be enthusiastic like Felix about getting back on the IDA. That's the way to be.
Mrs. Hoffman, do you know them personally or have a number by chance? If not, I mean offline.
At the post office.
I thought that was Donnie.
Donnie's his brother is at the post office.
All right.
We
Well, we'll track
go
him
by
down
there.
through Donnie. Okay.
Or I see him parked getting the mail in
You
front
can
of the
see how
courthouse.
we do business at Madison County. So again, welcome. All right, we will track him down.
Looks like look for a mail truck. I
Yeah.
mean, good Lord. This is a terrible way to do it. All right, look for him. If you don't find him, then
We'll
we
advertise.
But just check your mail. All right, moving on. Information and course. Any other new business? Information and correspondence. Tibbs Shop speed study.
Yes, and I may touch on two other roads while we're on the top. Roads have been a very a lot of phone calls, right, Alan? So Tibb Shop Road, we recently had a citizen request a speed study. As you know, the mechanism to do that is me bring that request to the board. The board approves of that. I make that request to VDOT. I think you've done one recently with Race Ground Road, for example. So this would be a request for the VDOT to do a speed study and to consider lowering the speed. While I'm on the road discussion, had a phone call about P Ridge Road, which is in its 6-year road plan improvement currently, but apparently at least one neighbor, and I think they're bringing a petition to the board next meeting. They're planning on it to petition to lower the speed. And to me, instead of, they certainly can, they have the right to get a petition, but to me, if I'm making a request for one speed study, I just make the request to the board today that you give consideration to a speed study also at P Ridge Road. That's the last state road on the left, headed down Wolftown Hood Road before you cross into Greene County line or Greene County. And then took a phone call this morning about Forest Drive, which was paved. A resident is not happy with the speed. They think it should be 35. Had stated they want us to change it out. And I explained the process. Again, it starts with a speed study request to VDOT. They handle the posting of the speed limit. As you recall, they mentioned they lowered the speed and posted that lower 45 mile an hour on Twyman's Mill. So I would request, or you give consideration to Tibb Shop Road, P Ridge Road, and Forest Drive, as speed study requests to VDOT. I believe there's no cost to the county for those, but that would allow them to study it, report back to you after the fact.
A lot of speeding on Forest Drive, a dead end.
There apparently, according to
down
this
that way or what?
resident, there is a lot of horse riding and people were riding fast or driving fast, not riding fast. That would assume the horse riders. But people were driving, scaring horseback riders and Woodbury Forest cyclists. And, it's a lot of traffic, I guess, on Forest Drive.
That's probably what it was. It's a bicycle. All right.
Where is Tibbs Road? I'm
Tibbs,
sorry.
it's in Miss Hoffman and I didn't know. It's in Brightwood. It's one of those loop
It
roads
connects
off that way.
Ridgeview to 29.
Apparently, speeders Mecca. I can't believe we're talking about Forest Drive again. I'm telling you. All right, what do y'all want to do here on Tibbs Shop, P Ridge, and Forest? You want to get the county administrator to get in touch with Miss Shepherd and do some speed study stuff? All right, that work. There you go. Let's do some speed studies. Sean Gregg, slow down. All right. Social service HVAC. Mr. Weekly.
And we have our wonderful director of social service here tonight. Ms. Hoffman is the board representative on the DSS board. I appreciate their work today. If you could tell, the board report was kind of written a little loosely because I wasn't sure where this was going to go. However, the final result is per our MOU. So let me backtrack. The county used to have a lease with social services. It ran from 1998 to 2018. After that lease expired, the county and DSS entered into a memorandum of understanding that specified roles and responsibilities. I asked Mr. Gregg to review that. Thank you, sir. And through that MOU, we confirmed that DSS would be responsible for the cost of the replacements. The DSS board met today and voted to approve covering that cost. However, there needs to be 3 quotes obtained. I was not at that meeting, so certainly if Supervisor Hoffman or Ms. Ward like to elaborate, but I'm not bringing a request to the board tonight to consider funding this. So that's where we're at.
I don't have much to say. We agreed at the board meeting that the MOU that we had substantiated the repair and replacement.
The biggest concern here, I think, for regardless of the whole consideration process, was the cost escalations and the timeline. So literally a quote at the end of March turned into a quote at the beginning of May, an increase of $3,000. No scope of work change, just escalation of price. Just to give you an example, R12, I think it's between $80 to $100, or is it a pound, I believe, Mr. Dawson?
$100 a pound.
So things are going up quickly, as well as the lead time. We're told the lead time on these units are a minimum of 20 weeks. So I think that was that message was delivered as well to DSS board today. So
Is it completely failing currently? Or is it limping along?
Limping is being polite. I'm just going to say it's end of life. What you don't have a true 2-zone system, which is what they need. So the building that DSS is located in, if I'm boring you, I apologize. It's more of a Cape Cod style. But what happens if someone gets hot upstairs because heat rises, they cut the AC on. There's no split zone like you would normally have in a properly designed system. So it could be, they set it for 70 upstairs and it could be lower 60s. They're having to run space heaters to compensate downstairs, which overloads the circuitry and trips breakers. So the newer efficient system would create 2 true zones. But it's a heating and air conditioning issue. So it'll be replacing, I think there's a gas furnace or 2 and creating a split system with 2 zones. And commercial 3-phase units are hard to find. There are some places with chillers and units, they're being told 64 weeks. And we all know there's 52 weeks in a year. So we were told there's at least a 20-week minimum. So I feel for DSS that puts you past summer. There are some immediate things that a contractor could do, and I've talked with at least 2 of those contractors now. But again, DSS board voted to take care of the expense. So that's the update I have for the board today.
Good. Any questions, comments on this one?
Okay, let me get this straight. Looking at the MOU, I read the MOU as this is DSS's issue to fund and handle, right?
So
what
we
part
are
have we got to play in this?
we're helping
county.
to facilitate. So
Yeah, sure.
you know, and I mean this. I'm not just saying that we try to be Team Madison here. So
Yeah.
like I am not an expert in social casework, so I would lean to Valerie. Certainly, we can at least pick up the phone and search what state contracts exist. So we found 2 state contract avenues for us. Initially, I was thinking this was going, but even for DSS to use. So we're just trying to facilitate at least getting some information over to them so they can execute this and get it moving along. I was very concerned with $3,000 price escalation. I said, did the scope of work change? No. And by the way, you could have another cost escalation in the near future. So, but that's only our role, sir, is just trying to help them out.
And we're the landlord. And we don't want them doing work on our building without our knowing it and approving it.
The other part I'm trying to be very transparent about, though, is running it through the DSS budget allows, hopefully, for state reimbursement from the Virginia Department of Social Services. There is some concern if they question or have a different reading of that determining understanding as to whether it is a landlord responsibility or not. So again, the local board and I completely agree that it should be covered by the Virginia Department of Social Services. Unfortunately, they don't have me make those decisions for them. So again, I've tried to be very open with both my board and the county administrator as to, you know, that I don't know what the
Where it could
state
go.
is going to say when that reimbursement either comes forward or not. So that's why I wanted to really have a conversation with the county ahead of time, so there would be hopefully be a surprise.
All right, thanks, Val.
But with the DSS board in agreement with the board of supervisors that the state should take care of this, it's got to throw a little bit away.
I would
That's what we're talking about.
And the
Um,
language is pretty clear.
yeah, let's hope this works in our favor. Any other questions on this one? All right, moving on. Fund balance and policy workshop, Mr. Weekly.
So I just want to run it by the board. We've had some staff level discussion, Bobby and myself. As you recall, through the budget workshops, we've talked about some fiscal policies, financial policies that are in place. We've talked a little bit about fund balance, but we really haven't dived in to see if the board is okay with current policies. Do we need to add any additional policies? And specifically, take a look at your fund balance and really see, you know, there's assigned, unassigned. There's certain percentage set out there that you keep restricted. So it's really to start a conversation. This is just a little bit of a forecast. Bobby and I will be doing some work ahead of time, but I would like to start having that discussion with the board in August. And what this will do is when we're looking at financial policies and fund balance and what's available, it'll help guide us with your goals and priorities as we head into capital planning in September and October. So that's where I would imagine maybe most of your funds, if you want to assign some fund balance, you would look to gauge that towards any potential goal or priorities you have, particularly in the capital projects arena. I did reach out to Anna Graham, superintendent of schools, to see when we could have another CIP, because they have capital improvement, but ultimately those requests come back through the county unless they have some type of grant, which still has to pass through the county. So it would be a joint effort. And really any capital request from that matter, we're going to, run it through everything, whether it's DSS or other departments. But this would be a lead off. So we'll review financial policies. What do they mean? Are they strong enough? Would you like to see more? Would you like to see less? and we move into fund balance. What is our fund balance? By then we'll know, we should know what we've closed out for FY22 because we're approaching that at the end of June. So it's really to dive in, have an understanding of policies, where we currently stand with fund balance, and do you want to start assigning some of that unassigned fund balance?
You're thinking about doing this at the second meeting in August, Mr. Weekly, starting.
That would probably be realistic. I mean, if we feel like we're ready, and I will certainly run that through you all by the early, the first meeting, sure, but definitely by the second meeting in August. I think that would actually give us some time to have that joint CIP meeting between the chair and vice chairs of both school board and board of supervisors.
It seems like it would be helpful if we have background information and documents that we could at least be presented with for review on August, or excuse me, wrong month here, on August 9th. And then we come to the meeting on the 23rd and start with a kind of a workshop type of deal.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Does that work? All right. Let's go down that path. It's a good thing all the way around.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Anything else on this one?
No, sir.
Good over here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of.
You look. That's what people do when they're stuck on their glasses. It's a sign.
I got to think about how we approach all of this. That's a mouthful right there. So
And it's not going.
I'll think.
We're not going to be able to solve or update or anything, but starting the conversation and starting trying to curtail it so it's a more honed, less than undesignated fund balance.
Well,
oh yeah.
And some folks, I'm not saying Madison County has to do this. Some localities I've seen, let's just say, for example, they want a debt mitigation plan. Like, hey, do we want to pay some debt off a little earlier? They may decide to use some fund balance for that. So it's just a way to get you thinking about where we're currently at. I know we have addition of 2 new members, so let's get the policy out there for the whole board to see, does it fit? I mean, overall, we're doing financially well, and that's something to be proud of. But you want to look at that fund balance. If it's growing, but I believe there's a lot of projects out there too that I'm thinking that you should consider that are growing. Yes, sir.
Growing too.
So
Yeah,
it's all about planning. I just want it as a planning mechanism.
Yeah, the fund balance issues. I got in my head how we could do that. I'm just, when you start talking about policies, we just talking about reviewing cash management policies and stuff, or we're not going into uses of the what's that funny card they're calling these days that.
I don't know. We don't do that in government.
No, what was it? Michelle was talking about the new purchasing card, P cards.
No.
I mean, we're not getting into the policy.
No. Purchasing card. I mean, when they say P cards, I hate all these acronyms.
Okay.
It's just a different way of. It's a different way of using a credit card. We're not getting into that because those policies exist.
I mean, the financial policy manual is about this thick, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we have a policy of a percentage we're supposed to maintain
sure.
in our balance, or our reserve, if you will. So policies like that.
Okay. All right.
And quite frankly, I would invite, if there's anything within that, like you said, that document that you want to address, let us know in advance. But we'll definitely give you a preview ahead of the August 9th timeline.
Okay.
I agree with you. We should make policy against P cards.
Yeah.
Just general, call it a credit card like everybody else. Any other comments on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one,
Please.
and we talked about this before, but I think this would be a great first step to us implementing a more of a strategic planning process. I think we're going to have very significant challenges in the next couple of years based upon the national economy, some other local issues that we have to, like fire and rescue and RSA fallout and all that sort of things. So I think it would really be a benefit to the county if we could have a better comprehensive overall strategic view of where we are and where we want to go. And I think that's an excellent place to start.
Very much. Very much. Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Broadband update, Mr. Weekly.
Okay, Alan, if you'll start with the map first, and then we'll go into a timeline. I condensed a little bit from the Planning Commission workshop. So what you have before you, I'm going to use this to explain several different things. When Madison County applied for the VATI grant, it was challenged as far as the service providers and what they could serve. So when you look at that map, CenturyLink was one of the two that challenged, and Chantel was the other internet provider that challenged the VATI grant. What you see depicted in yellow would represent what's already approved or what's getting ready to be finalized. It's known as the RISE project, and hence Firefly will be the provider of that yellow area. What you see depicted, and I don't know if they call that orange or red, whatever you feel that darker color is to you, that area is the primary challenged area of CenturyLink. There's a small portion, I think, of Chantel that's up near that Banco Cricklesville area, but a very small portion. What you see that's outlined a big circle in red that it's basically unserved or underserved is where Chantel, a lot of Chantel's area they were looking to cover. What we've learned through this process is Chantel, as of last week, notified the county that they will be backing out, which is what they had already notified Rappahannock County that they were doing there. So we got that in writing. I got it in an email at this time. I have it in writing. I asked for a formal letter so we can put that on our file as well as DHCD. But DHCD, who's administering, they're kind of the hierarchy with all the VATI administration stuff. They are aware of this. So that's with Chantel. The board had authorized me to send a letter of intent. I have found out that the letter of intent to apply for the next round, so it's FY 2023 VATI application. I will send that letter to DHCD. That has to be received by, I believe it's July 7th. We're not going to wait for July 7th, but we will make that notification, the intent to apply. From there, I would recommend that the board authorize me, because I don't think we did that when you said letter of intent, an RFP to issue a request for proposal for providers for that area that you see outlined in red, because our citizens currently don't have a coverage plan, and that would allow us to apply for that area for the next round of VATI. What we're working on, that darker color of the CenturyLink area, and we're trying to get a meeting scheduled this week. It's a follow-up of our last MOU discussion. There's an MOU that the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, which Campbell, Greene, and Madison counties are part of that discussion of an MOU with CenturyLink. It will determine if we move forward with CenturyLink or not. What you have depicted would assume that we moved forward with CenturyLink. If we do not, then that area turns yellow and that becomes part of the RISE project. That is already funded. The VATI project required a 10% match. So it's roughly over a $25 million project. Madison's local share was a little over 2.5 million, to which we were a benefit of ARPA funds. So pretty much all of our ARPA funds were designated for the board approved an ARPA spending plan, and it was designated for broadband. So there's monies there to do both the yellow and the darker color there. It just depends on who we're serving. If it stays the same, 2.1 million will cover the RISE project, and a little over 400,000 will cover CenturyLink's portion. But again, I believe we would need an RFP to get out there to start getting some interest for an IP in that kind of Nethers, Etland, Syria area. So go to the next slide, please, Alan. I want to show you the timeline. Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have a question?
I'm jumping ahead of you a little bit. Are you going to come back to us at the June 14th meeting and ask us to move forward with an RFP?
Yes, sir. So right now, before we come back to our next meeting, I would have already sent that notice of application due. So if you look at the timeline, that's due on July 7th. We're going to make that notification. And then, yes, at June 14th, I'll come back. I'll have a board report formally making a request of an RFP. Tracy, give her kudos. She's kind of been working on a draft of that now, and she sent that today. It's under my review. And then whatever wordsmithing, I'll get that over to Sean to put final eyes on it. But yes, sir, I'll make that official request at the June meeting. So this is your timeline. So I've talked about the notice of intent due by July 7th. The applications are due by August 25th. As you can see, you go through, DHCD will post those applications on the website. Any challenges, just like we were challenged last time, they're due by October the 6th. And it kind of gets into this back and forth with ultimately an anticipated announcement of award late December of 2022, which is consistent with their last award announcement was late December 2021. So that is the timeline we're working off of. Is there any questions from the board?
Questions? Or you
No,
may get internet sooner than later.
That's right. Let's see. Yes. It's odd that challenges are due before awards are made, but I guess so everybody that responds to it, I know that's the way it was last go around.
Oh, and I forgot to
but
mention,
how do you-
Mr. Yao, an important criteria, which I think is going to shake some folks or maybe reduce challenges. They changed the upload download requirements.
Yeah.
Now they think it went from like 20 or 25 MIPS to now it's 100. So basically everybody's looking at a 1 gig kind of symmetrical type of approach. So that's what Chantel shared why they're backing out. It didn't make sense to try to build something at the last round standards when the definitions are changing for the next round of VATI.
It seems like we're on a good timeline.
Yeah.
Let's get the letter sent immediately. We know we have needs. And then let's get to the RFP process so we can start to identify and understand what our costs are.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we're done with information. This is the most information and correspondence we ever had. Any other information and correspondence? Do we have anything else to discuss? All right, public comment. Public comment.
I will say one thing.
All right.
Let's get that lady from VDOT up here every month. And let's start spraying those gravel roads more than once a month. They were there the other day on my road. But
The calcium chloride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever
they did me. It lasted 3 or 4 days.
yeah.
It
then it
happens.
rained.
It was a good
And
3
then
or
it
4.
rained.
Yeah, that's right.
And I appreciate Joe bringing up a VDOT item again. It was good right around that Supervisor Jewett and Supervisor Dawson and myself had with VDOT last week. One of the things we've asked so they can clarify is how does the point of notification or work request made? Because we're getting our residents and as well as us, Alan fields a lot of calls. We're getting mixed message where someone will say they call VDOT, they direct them to us. So we want a clear line of what's the step so we can post it on the website. We can even take out an ad and publish it in the paper to get the word out. But there is some conflicting of how you notify VDOT. So I've been telling folks, to meet them at a minimum, contact our office and we'll start the process. But one of the landowners we met, they're going to need a culvert. Well, okay, you're going to need a land use permit. Well, if I'm a resident, okay, what does that mean? What's the next process? So really need to be able to establish kind of some FAQs and how the public engages with them. I mean, I'm happy to take those calls, but right now it seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding of how work gets to queue and who handles what. So Ms. Shepherd has committed to getting me that structure so we can get that information out there.
It's not just call Alan.
No, I mean, you can.
There you
He's
go.
a friendly guy, but no, that's not the
that's
proper
right.
process. So.
All right. No, that's a good plan. All right. Other public comment.
one last one,
All right.
and then I'll acquiesce to my neighbor. They gotta clean those ditches, VDOT.
All right.
That's part of the maintenance thing. And I don't know if Tom's gonna talk about that, but that's one of the problems we have on the Don't ever clean those.
I agree.
You know,
They, like 2 years ago, it was they don't clean ditches anymore. Now, since we had the fun with Forest Drive, it looks like they do clean ditches. So maybe we can get some of that done. Yes, sir.
Just a question with respect.
In your name.
Thomas Williams.
Yes, sir.
Also on Rickwood Road. I'm
Sure.
Joe's neighbor. Question in terms of the broadband for the northern part of Madison County, that whole area, is the thought that the amount of subsidy and the pricing would be comparable to what Firefly has already proposed for other areas of the county? And I guess would the speed also be consistent? In other words, treating all residents of the county in equal measure.
If we can get, sorry, good questions. If we can, hopefully the RFP will definitely generate that response. My expectations is, yes, it needs to be equal because you know, whether it's for commerce you're using, a lot of people have home businesses, or if it's for school or telemedicine, it needs to be comparable. So the answer is yes. The RFP allows you to kind of be a little more exclusive of this is what we're looking for. Yes, you need to really look at the minimum standards that the state's putting out, but I'm very pleased the state really upped those speeds requirement. What they don't necessarily specify is the rate structure. I was very happy that Firefly was very transparent. This is what they're telling us now, but this is our rate. This is what you will pay. No data caps. If you want to add home phone, this is the cost. We don't have that yet from, say, CenturyLink. We never received it from Shentel. So hopefully also the cost to homeowners, your monthly reoccurring cost will be comparable. But yes, as far as speed, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Other public comment? Good. We do have a closed session. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Yale.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me to come. Oh,
No, not you. No, you're required.
I move that the board convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7 for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to an actual or probable litigation.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Very good. Yeah, it's fine. Shouldn't. Nah.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, he's happy. Good.
What's that?